Hello, welcome to this nutshell video on eligibility for an IEP in preschool. So you've had the evaluation and the team is going to sit down and review the evaluation and then look at the evaluation and make the determination on based on the evaluation, does this student meet the criteria for an IEP, for special education services in preschool? The first determination that the team has to make, and remember parents are part of the team, is does the student have an educational disability under the IDEA? The IDEA is the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. Okay, that's the law that governs all of special education. You can find a lot of information on it online at the Georgia Department of Education website, as well as the Coweta County Schools special education website. Under the IDEA, there are 12 categories of eligibility, and you got to fit into one of those categories. It can be confusing because there's overlap between the educational language and the medical language. And I'll give you an example of what I mean by that. Um, One of the categories of eligibility is autism spectrum disorder. So when my son was 3, he was coming into the school system and we were talking about eligibility. I naturally assumed that he would be eligible under the category of autism spectrum disorder because he had a medical diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder. Well, he didn't meet the criteria of that category of eligibility. And at first, I was confused by that because I thought that the educators were telling me that that meant they didn't think he had autism. And that's not at all what they were telling me. They were making no opinions at all about his medical diagnosis. What they were saying is, under the category of eligibility of autism spectrum disorder, he didn't meet that criteria. The good news is he met the criteria of another category of eligibility, actually more than one. The category of eligibility that he met was significant developmental delay. You'll hear it called SDD. And that's the most common category for the little ones, for the 3 to 5 year olds. Because a lot of times there's not a diagnosis yet, but there is developmental delays that are identified. And so you got to meet a category of eligibility. I encourage you not to get too upset if your child qualifies under a category of eligibility that you weren't expecting, because the category is not as important as qualifying. So if the child qualifies for services under any category, the services are going to be based on what the child needs and not what the category is. So, okay, so it's important to know that a diagnosis is not necessary. You can have a diagnosis and you can share that with the school system and they will consider that, but it's not necessary. And it's important to know that the school does not diagnose medical conditions. They aren't medical professionals, they're educators. And at the same time, doctors don't diagnose or don't write prescriptions for IEPs, and they don't get an opinion about what category of eligibility a student falls under, because that's an educational decision that an educational team makes with the parents. So doctor's information can be considered, but it's not the final word. The final word happens within that IEP team. Remember, and parents are important parts of that IEP team. So it can be confusing the difference between the educational model and the medical model, but it's important to understand. You also may qualify for services through the medical model outside of the school system. So you may qualify for speech therapy, occupational therapy, ABA therapy, and it may be paid for by your private insurance. And that has nothing to do with the school system and their services, because that criteria is going to be through a medical model, not the educational model. Okay, so we've gotten through that. We've gotten through the categories of eligibility. The next step is that the child must need specialized instruction. And for the little ones, what that looks like is it could be speech therapy, it could be um, a community teacher coming into a preschool class or a daycare and providing instruction for the student, for the teachers, and working on school readiness skills. It could be the student coming into a Coweta school for speech therapy or for working on those school readiness skills. It really just depends on what the student needs. It is really based on what the student needs. So if the team determines that the child is eligible, then the next step is for the team to write a plan. So there's another video on IEPs. I encourage you to watch it. I know this can be a lot of information. I encourage you to do your own research. There's a lot of information online. If you want to talk to me and you're in Coweta County, my information is on the screen. If you've got questions about the process, you can absolutely reach out to our Coweta County special ed folks. They're fabulous. Their information is on the screen, or you can just call the county office and ask for them. If you're not in Coweta County, you can also just call your county office and ask for the preschool special ed folks, and they'll tell you. They can hook you up with the right people. You also may want to go online and go to parentmentors.org and see if you've got a parent mentor in your county, because that could be another resource for you. Thank you. Have a good day.